what has become clear to me is that the one thing that matters in relationships, the one thing that to me that determines whether a relationship thrives over 50 years or doesn't make it is the level of emotional safety inside the relationship, the way each partner impacts the other one.
Welcome back to Dating Rehab with Anna Morgenstern. We have Ramiro today. So excited. He's a licensed marriage and family therapist, and he's also the founder of Find Your Relationship Counseling. So I thought he'd be a perfect person to have on. We are going to get into more of the therapy side of dating. This is what he does with patients. And I'm honestly I have a lot of questions from how I can help clients better and also even my own life. I'm really excited to have you on. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about the types of patients that you work with. Why would people come to you?
But the kinds of clients I see are people that most of the time obviously are in relationships or have been in relationships, and they've been to other therapists or other relationship professionals, and they found that not as helpful. They've tried a lot of things on their own, and unfortunately, most of the time when people come to see me, we've gotten to the point where we got to see somebody, or we are in deep, deep, deep trouble. Most people don't come to me they definitely don't come to me to tell me that everything is great. And they definitely don't come to me just to say, well, we kind of noticed this one thing. We want to nip this before it gets any worse. It tends to not happen. It tends to be people that they have struggled for some time. And then it's almost like a last ditch. We got to do something kind of thing.
So both singles and people's in couples or only couples?
Both.
Okay.
Because I have in my practice, I do couples counseling, but I also do couples counseling for one. There are times where somebody wants to go to see a counselor and the partner doesn't. One of the common misconceptions is, well, if they really cared about the relationship, they'd want to come. They'd want to talk to somebody. That's often not the case. And I can get into this more a little bit later, but it's more because generally speaking, that partner, the one that doesn't want to come in, they've been told or they've been hearing, you suck, you suck, you suck, you suck, you suck. And then they're going, okay, now you want me to go talk to somebody and have the two of you tell me I suck? And then I got to pay for that? That doesn't sound like a good time to me. I don't know if I want to do that. And so they end up not coming. So I'll work in the relationship with the one person. And then unfortunately, what ends up happening oftentimes is the one person that does come in, if they get to the point where like, look, if you don't come in here to see somebody, it's over. We're leaving. They're like, well, if it's between getting told I suck by two people or losing my spouse, I'll get told I suck and I'll just take the punching bag thing. And so that's generally what ends up happening. But
how can you get the full picture? If one person's coming in saying, this is my perspective, they're doing this, this, and this, you don't really know the other side of it. So is it almost kind of like enabling that person in a way and their thinking? Or do you have a way of kind of still being able to get through to them?
I do. So one of the things that I am notorious for in my work is the ability to translate what one partner said to the other one. And so part of what I can do, and this evolved over the years, is when I'm in a room with a couple, for instance, right? I can be myself and hear hear one person what they're saying. I can listen to what one of the partners is saying, and I can translate what it is that they're actually trying to say. And I can listen through the other person's ears and hear what they're hearing as that person is speaking, which is generally those are not going to be the same thing. What they're trying to tell me and what the other person's hearing is not going to be the same thing, right? And so I can be all three people in the room at the same time. How that then works is when I'm talking to an individual and they're telling me X, Y, Z, I can be their partner because I can understand what their partner is going to experience or hear with what this person is describing to me. And I've had multiple people tell me that their partner, the person that I never met, says, I don't know how somebody can understand me without ever seeing me, without ever knowing me. And so I get that often. So for me, I only need one person to actually get the full picture. I know it's hard to believe because it's very easy for bias to come in. Whenever I see couples, whenever I see individuals, I always tell people, your relationship is my primary client. And so everything I say, everything I do is with that in mind. So my goal is never to tell you you're right or the other person or you're wrong. My goal is always to help you get the relationship in the way that you want it. And the only way to do that is by being able to understand both people. And it's just a technique I've just honed over the years of doing this.
Hold on, I'm going to get my husband. Just kidding. No, that's
Bring him on. We'll have a good time.
That's really incredible. You're right. Most people don't go to see a therapist until things get really bad. Can you imagine if when people, the beginnings of a relationship, like let's figure out any reasons why we could have miscommunication early on. That would, I would think, lead to more success in a relationship, right? But most people don't do that.
No, I try to tell people all the time, it's easier and cheaper to prevent problems than it is to fix them. But,
It's so true.
the unfortunate truth though is that when two people are in love, right? They know that I know that I love my partner. I think I know my partner loves me, maybe, but I don't know if I mean to them what they mean to me, right? There'll be a lot of that. And so what nobody wants to ever encounter is they walk into an office with somebody like me, right? And have me go, I just don't think you're compatible. I just don't think it's going to work out. I don't know about this one. Nobody wants to hear that. And so, the risk of being told that and then to risk maybe my partner would agree. I don't know if I want to chance that. So I think I'd rather just close my eyes and hope for the best. I mean, that
Yeah.
because the unfortunate reality is that there are going to be people that will tell them that. And I'm not going to be one of them, but there will be people out there that do that. And so most people, yes, I totally agree. It would be much easier and much better long term to nip a lot of things in the bud before they ever happen. But the threat of this creating a problem by just coming to see somebody before there even is a problem is a very real threat to many couples.
I've had a couple of married friends. They say that when one of the spouses starts going to a therapist, that's the kiss of death.
It can be. It can
And
be
that
because
usually divorce is around the corner.
yeah, well, I mean, like, because oftentimes, and this is true, I have a lot of, even though I'm a mental health professional, I have a lot of issues with a lot of the way mental health is viewed and done out there. And so, what unfortunately will happen often is that one person goes, sees a therapist, that therapist will sit there and validate and say, yeah, what you're doing, yes, what you're doing is right, what you're doing, what you have every right to feel the way you do. And there is truth to some of that. But the unfortunate thing that happens is they go home and be like, my therapist is telling me that I'm doing it all right. And so
Mhm.
you're the problem and you gotta change. Right. And so that's not ever going to be a solution that works, And so
Yeah.
it's a very common story.
Do you feel like if one person decides to go to therapy, and they're talking to their therapist about problems, are they not talking to then their partner actually about the partner, 'cause, about the problems because they have someone else, like a different outlet to kind of talk these things through. So when they come home, the partner might not even know that there's issues because the person's saying it, to their therapist. Does that happen?
Sometimes, but that is a pretty rare circumstance. The
Okay.
vast majority of times, it's I've tried talking to my partner. I've tried talking to my partner a lot. Nothing seems to be getting better. Nothing seems to be getting different. I got to go talk to somebody else. I go talk to somebody else. That therapist, like the other partner's going to be like, what the therapist say? They're going to be very curious because they want to know just exactly what the therapist, like if the therapist is turning them against the partner against them. And so I go talk to this therapist now because I've tried talking to my partner. That hasn't worked. I talk to this therapist. The therapist tells me, yes, because the therapist at that point is only getting one perspective. So they only see the one thing, right? They're not getting anything from their partner. So the therapist is very natural for that to have the bias towards the person that you're talking to. They're going to feed that client the validation, the you're doing it right, the whatever. They're going to go home and they're going to tell the partner who they haven't had any luck with talking to them and getting anything to change to be like, look, my therapist is totally on my side. My therapist is telling me this is exact what I'm saying is exactly right. And then that's going to lead to its own fight going because the other partner's going to be like, well, did you tell them everything? Did you tell them what you did? Did you tell them what you did on this thing? Did you tell them when you said this thing? And then so that's going to cause its own fight. They're going to fight about the fight.
I know. Well, you said something that I really want to get more information on is the majority of relationship advice fails over time. What do you mean by that? What are some examples?
Well, okay, so I've been a marriage and family therapist for almost 15 years, and in the last 7, almost 8 years, it's been just relationship stuff. But that I've done, and what I've discovered is that the one thing that matters in relationships, the one thing that to me that determines whether a relationship thrives over 50 years or doesn't make it, is the level of emotional safety inside the relationship, the way each partner impacts the other one. A lot of conventional advice never takes into account the impact we have on the other person. Like for instance, always be honest, right? Always be honest. Clearly communicate, right? What ends up happening is that what we end up saying it in a way that comes off as attacking to the other person. Let me explain. So in every relationship, right? And every single one, for every single partner, if they have something they really want to get across, if they have something they really want the partner to understand, if they have something that really matters to them, at the heart of that, whatever it is, will be some kind of primary emotion of either fear, emotional hurt, or emotional pain every single time.
Mm.
And so primary emotion is it's the things that happen to us in the moment. When we think about our lives, we look at our lives, we look at the best moments of our life and the worst moments of our life. Those are all shaped by the way we experience them, by our primary emotion. There's five real basic ones. There's joy, sadness, fear, hurt, and pain. Hurt, emotional hurt is the stuff that happens inside the relationship, the things that are done, the things that are said. Emotional pain is the stuff we bring with us into the relationship, right? And so, and it's one thing to avoid possible pain, is another thing to avoid experienced pain, right? Things that we have experienced to be painful, right? Each person has pain in their history. That's unavoidable. The primary emotion is the most real parts about us, the most genuine parts about us, and the most vulnerable parts about us. And they're the things that get understood. But because we have a difficult time accessing that and being able to stay in individual moments to understand them enough to convey them to our partner, what we end up doing instead is communicating in what I call secondary emotion, the reactions to the primary emotion, right? And so things like anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, talking about the truth, talking about the facts, talking about right and wrong, talking about who's right and wrong, talking about anything that has nothing to do with the emotion, right? All secondary emotion has a push away effect. All primary emotion has a pulling effect. All secondary emotion comes off as attacking. All of it. And so what ends up happening is, because it's not communicating what we're trying to get across, what we end up telling our partner, what they end up hearing unintentionally, but it will be there, it says, I feel you suck. That's going to be the message that they're going to hear. And so if people find themselves saying things like, that's not what I meant, that's not what I said, that's not what I was getting at, that's not what I was going for, no, that's not it, you're not getting it, right? They find yourself saying that, it's because what you're saying, what you're trying to get across, is coming off as a secondary thing to your partner. So when we talk about always be honest and always communicate, right? If what we're doing is communicating and being honest with in secondary ways, all we're doing is perpetuating an attack thing that ends up unintentionally, but very naturally and predictably eroding the safety in the relationship. So take, for instance, the classic, I mean, there's so many of these, but the classic, let's say you have two people, right? Each of them have been divorced before. One of them, right? Let's say the man, because it's stereotypical. Stereotypes happen for a reason, right? The man, he, in his previous marriage, his wife, he has a lot of pain associated with his wife talking to him. And every conversation that she started, she said, we need to talk, right? We need to talk. And he began to associate that we need to talk equals fight, equals things are going to get real bad between us, right? He divorces, does his therapy, he does his healing, he does all the things, right? A few years later, he meets this woman. She was divorced. And I say in her marriage, like that husband, he never wanted to talk to her. He would just close up, right? Close up with everything. He just would never open up ever. She divorces. She does the healing, does all the things, right? They meet, they hit it off. They like each other. They think they're great. What happens a year later, 2 years later, when she starts a conversation that says, hey, we need to talk? How is he going to react?
He's not going to like that.
No, right? Predictably, he's not, right? Because we can't erase that. No matter how much healing the guy does, there is no changing how he's not going to like that. But if all she's doing is trying to communicate, she's going to have no idea. She's going to have no idea that she needs to be looking for that, right? And so she's going to wonder, why is he reacting like that? What a jerk. What an a-hole, right? All I did was wanted to communicate. All I'm doing was what conventional relationship advice is telling me. I'm just telling you how I feel. Right? And all of a sudden that creates a fight. And all of a sudden you're not who I thought you were. And then
Mhm.
that spirals into all kinds of other
You're
things,
just
right?
like my ex. Yeah.
And then it only goes downhill from there. But at the heart of it, though, is the idea that in this case, conventional advice tells you to always be honest and always communicate, but it takes zero into account the impact, the pain of the past that we lived through. And so to me, that's why so often so many things that people will do very naturally and very unintentional will create an erosion of safety between us in the environment. Every relationship has an environment, right? And so if you pretend you go running at a park every day and you
Mhm.
run this same park hundreds of times, you've run this trail backwards and forwards, and you're running one day and something pops out of the corner, what do? You kind of look, you see a squirrel, you don't think anything of it, you keep going. But now pretend you're at a different park at night, one you've never been to before, and
Mhm.
somebody has just gotten mugged there the night before. right? Same thing, you're running, right? And something pops out of the corner of your eye. What are you going to do? You're either
Right.
going to like get ready to throw down, or you're going to take off the other way, right? And so I would tell you, to me, both of those reactions are exactly the same. The difference is in the parks.
The environment.
Right. The first park is predictable. It's shown you it is safe. It's shown you you can let your guard down. The thing that gets everybody in the second park, it's not that that park is dangerous. It's that you don't know that it's not. You
Hmm.
can't give it the benefit of the doubt, because if you do and you're wrong, you're dead. So we won't. We avoid pain first, right? And so every relationship has an environment, every single one. Nothing ever happens in isolation, right? And so if you take any relationship and have them put on a 1 to 10 scale, how safe is it between us? 1 being completely not safe, 10 being completely safe. The same conversation, the same moment will look and feel very different if we're at a 7 than if we're at a 2.
Totally.
Only because of the environment, right? And so going back to that example, she goes, "Hey, we need to talk." And they start talking to each other about, "Well, you suck," right? What is that going to look like in 10 years if that
Mhm.
never changes? That's going to create even bigger problems. You can see the lack of safety, like it gets the safety starts to degrade. I will argue, and I've seen this over and over again, that relationships then don't end because of a lack of love. They end up ending because of a lack of safety. Because for some couples, and you're going to see this a lot everywhere, there's a lot of people that can relate to this. Things become so unsafe that they can't even ask each other to pass the salt without World War III breaking out. Every word becomes threatening. Everything that could be taken the wrong way will be taken the wrong way. The jokes that used to be funny aren't so funny anymore. I figured out 100 different ways how to make them unhappy, but only 3 that seem to make a positive difference, right?
Huh.
And it's like everything, all of a sudden, it's like walking on eggshells everywhere. A very predictable erosion of safety that ends up happening naturally if we follow conventional advice that doesn't take into account the impact we have on our partner.
Right.
Am I making sense? I hope I'm making sense.
Yeah. No, that actually makes so much sense that every relationship is its own environment.
100%.
And we come into a new relationship with our experiences, the good and the bad.
I am.
And we equate, what we experienced into the new relationship, whether it was how someone wouldn't answer their phone right away. And we assume, oh, they're cheating. When really they're just at the gym or something. And we
Right.
assume the worst because we experienced the worst. It's so hard to get
Correct.
out of your own way sometimes with a new relationship because you want to stay aware of, red flags and all of that. But if you're looking for red flags, you're going to
You're
find
gonna
them.
find them.
Right? Whether or not they're real, you're gonna find
Yeah.
them. I wanted to ask you because I always talk about 2 pieces of advice that I received by therapists that I thought were great, but I'm curious if you agree or disagree. So the first one was actually, this was not from a therapist, this was from my friend's dad, but he was divorced and he said that the best advice he could give me or give anyone was that to marry someone you're not scared to divorce. And obviously, that was from his own lens, but I think he meant it in a way that if you think the person will try to make your life a living hell because that's just who they are, the way they speak to other people, the way they run their business, if they have this streak in them that could be very vicious, that's a red flag. It could turn on you too. Do you agree with that?
I don't, and
Okay.
I don't, and let me tell you why. Well intentioned advice, I will give that. I don't, because why do we fall in love? Fundamentally, right? At least I believe I have the answer. Because like when I talk about a relationship, I define it as when we have a significant other, somebody that holds a place inside of us that nobody else has access to, somebody that can
Hmm.
reach us in a place that nobody else can. The thing I call the table for one, because it's reserved for one person, right? And it's the reason why nobody can make you feel better, nobody can make you feel worse. It's the reason why you're always going to be more sensitive to everything that person does and says. It's just the way it
Yep.
is. So nobody can cause more fear in us than our significant other, because nobody can cause more pain in us than our significant other. And so nobody can bring out the best in us and nobody can bring out the worst in us. And so everybody across gender, culture, age, everybody knows this spot I'm talking about. Everybody that's ever been in love understands this spot I'm talking about. And so what that tells me is that whether you believe in God, whether you believe in nature, whether you believe in whatever made us, whatever designed us, whatever put us here, gave us this spot for a reason. Because otherwise, what is the point? Right? It's got to serve a purpose. I believe that we fall in love for a purpose. And I believe the purpose is this, is that we want to say, right, that in a world where our brain is going to tell us that everything around us is potentially dangerous, I want to be able to say, at least I know it is safe with you, that I could go
Mm.
to you with any fear, no matter how small or silly it may be, and you'll reassure me, and I'll do the same for you. That I can go to you with any hurt or pain, no matter how small or silly it may be, and you'll understand and comfort me, and I'll do the same for you. And I would argue that it is then and only then that we know the other person is really in it with us. That's to me, that's the only way, right? But when we have that, when we know they're with us, we can turn it back to them. And we can look out to the world and say, "All right, world, give me your best shot because we got this."
Hmm.
We want to be able to say along the way, at the end, when we get to life's finish line, whenever that may be, 40, 50 years in the future, right? Been together this whole time. We want to be able to say, looking back together, life was hard, life is a struggle, but we got through it together. It felt
Hmm.
like we could lean on each other the whole way, and it was the best decision that we ever made. And I would do it again with you. That is what we want. And so I think you combine those two things. And to me, that is the reason why we fall in love, because we want to have that. And so
Hmm.
it's pretty good, right? It resonates with everybody because to me, there's a fundamental truth in that. Going back to your question, never marry somebody you'd be afraid to divorce. You can't get what I just described with that attitude because
Hmm.
you're never going to have the kind of closeness you actually want. You're never going to have this. This is what we really want, to be able to close, to be able to lean on each other no matter what, to have to know that we're in the grind together, to know that no matter what happens, no matter what life throws at us, it's us. No questions asked. And we know it. You can't ever get that if you're having this arm's length thing away with this person
There's a
because
wall or something.
yes, you're gonna keep them. I was like, you're gonna keep yourself from trying to get attached because you're like, I got to make sure that I am not afraid to get divorced if things go wrong.
Yeah. Well, then when you see people that are like ruthless in business, is that a red flag that they could potentially be really difficult to divorce one day? Or don't even think about that. Like that might not even apply.
Everybody, when we're going through something, all human beings, we want to know that we're not alone in what we're going through, right? And so we're fighting tiger out in the corner. We want to know that there's somebody right here behind us with us, not because they're going to fight for us, not because they're going to take on the tiger, not because they're going to pick up the sword, but because we know that if we're not alone, it gives us more strength to deal with that thing. Right. That's all everybody wants to know. They're not alone in what they're going in. We figure out that the things we go through maybe are not that big a deal to those around us, that the things we go through, maybe people use it against us, right? And so that, when we're 4 years old and we have our favorite ice cream cone flavor and it falls to the ground, like how do the people the closest to us, our parents most of the time, react, right? Oftentimes parents will like harmlessly, right? They'll kind of laugh because they think it's cute, right? But for that 4-year-old, that's literally the worst thing that's ever happened to them. That
Yeah.
pain is very real. And so
Yeah.
that leaves an impression of what I go through. They laugh, or they try to distract me, or they try to feed me something else,
Uh,
or they say, "Well, if you don't stop crying, I'll give you a real reason to start crying." And you have all these different kinds of reactions that 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old, where moments happen where we get the message that what we go through is just it's not that big a deal to those around me for whatever reason, whatever experience we got. And so people, not consciously but on the emotional level, end up creating their own strategies for how they deal with the world.
mhm.
Some people turn to anger. Some people turn to drugs. Some people turn to alcohol. Some people turn to work 18 hours a day. Some people go to the gym 5 hours a day. Some people binge watch TV. Like some people spend doom scroll on social media, right? Some people are in video games. Some people want to talk everything out and have to, talk, 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 talk. Some people got to go in their shell. Some people it
Yeah.
just all of a sudden it's stoic. So
And
all
that's
the
all from childhood
well, it's all from like strategies that we develop in terms of how we
over the
deal with
years.
what happens over the years. Yeah, we don't do it
Yeah.
consciously. We just develop that,
Interesting.
right? And so what I see in relationships is at the heart of every disagreement, every important conversation, whatever, is a fear, hurt, pain, some capacity. And so when those things come up, what people will end up doing is their strategy for how they deal with it, how they historically deal with this. It's in a way that it won't be that their partner will understand. Going back to what you just asked a second ago with the corporate ruthless person, I would instead of seeing how they do deals, I would see what they do when things are bothering them, how they react. That's going to be a bigger telltale sign in terms of what kinds of things are going to happen in the relationship. Because if you're their significant other, nobody's going to bring out the worst in them than you will. And so that's just the way it is. And so that would be kind of more of how I would think of it.
Do you think it's true that we tend to marry someone that reminds us, for women, we tend to marry someone that reminds us of our father. For women, someone that reminds us of their mother. Is that something you see in reality?
Yes, but it's hard. That's always a hard one for me to answer because I do see that. It's not, I don't think it's for the reasons that people think it is. And
Okay.
so, so oftentimes when I was talking about like these strategies of how we deal with the world, these emotional strategies, right? We tend to mimic what we see. So if my father was a drunk, right, and he drank a lot, that was his strategy for like I didn't conceptualize that way, but that was what he did. It's more likely that we'll drink as our emotional strategy. If our mother was very angry, she yelled all the time. That's how my mother dealt with the world. That's how I'll deal with the world. It has more to do with the emotional experiences that come as a result of seeing our parents, that we end up being with somebody that brings out the similar kinds of emotional experiences. At least that's
Yeah,
the way
that
I've kind of come to
that makes
understand it.
sense. I've had so many women that I've spoken to that say they've had the most amazing fathers who are the best husbands and providers, and that they're kind of screwed in dating because they compare men to their father, and they're like, "No one's ever gonna be as good as my dad." I hear that a lot. So it's obviously it's great to have a good father, but,
Yes.
like, you can look for similar qualities, but what do you think about, like, comparing who you're dating to, your father?
Comparison is the thief of joy in all avenues, in my opinion. It's just the nature of a father daughter, and I have a daughter, so I can attest to some of this. But she's about to be 10 in May. The nature of a
They're
father
already, like,
daughter,
sassy. That's like when they first start getting sassy around
yeah,
10.
it's starting to happen. It's starting to come. I see it. The father daughter relationship, from an emotional bond perspective, is just always going to be very different than a husband wife emotional
Uh-huh.
dynamic. It's just not a realistic way to look at it, I would say, because to me, our relationship with our significant other is going to be the highest stakes emotional game we'll ever play. It just will be. And so there's just no way in emotional context that your relationship with a husband is going to feel any similar to the way it was with your dad. There may be similarities, right? Because, if my dad made me feel really safe, I want to be with a partner that makes me feel safe. There will be similarities in that regard. And that will be a good thing. But in other circumstances, it's just not going to be, it's just not going to work. It's just not going to
Yeah,
be the
because I
right.
feel like there's still that stigma that men need to be a provider. And I think women, feel like, well, my dad, he was this great provider. He had took care of all my needs, and so they want that in a partner. But what you're saying, that's not really realistic. That's not really the same kind of relationship, especially if you want a partnership. It's not really like you're dependent and they're, making sure that you're okay. You want to come into the relationship both, contributing.
I would say interdependence is what I always like. So not dependence, but interdependence.
How do you define interdependence exactly? Just so we're clear.
I can do that because a lot of people will call this kind of thing codependence. It irks me.
Right.
Oh, it just irks me so much because I have a
Yeah.
different definition for codependence. But interdependence is we have two individuals that that can say I need my partner because they fill a space inside of me that nobody else can.
Table for one.
Table for one, exactly. If my partner's not around, yes, it would devastate me, but I know that life will go on. I know I could figure out how to make it. But I know that I need my partner and my partner needs me. And we feel that because we have that kind of closeness that we have our individuality, but we have the unity, the emotional closeness through emotional safety that gives us that sense of we need each other and we know it. The problem that I see oftentimes is that people are so afraid of being codependent, right? And having to be independent, that they will do similar to what I was talking about earlier, have this like, I don't need you, 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 and have this arm's length thing that will never give them the kind of actual closeness that they're looking for, the kind of actual warmth that they're looking for. And then they'll have more of a transactional kind of relationship where like, I do
Uh-huh.
this thing and you do this thing, and I guess we're being good partners because that's what we're supposed to do, but we feel like something's not right. We feel like something's missing. Like we feel like this should be better. Like it's not bad, but we feel like there should be more and we can't quite put our finger on why. You'll end up with a lot of not detachment, but like arm's length kind of relationship that will starve you of the closeness that you're looking for from that partner.
Yeah, that's interesting because I also, work with a lot of men, and I hear a lot of this more often now where they want a woman who works, who's career oriented, because they're so scared of being taken advantage of. A woman who's pretending that she wants to, be a partnership, but really she's looking to be a dependent and wants to be taken care of, doesn't want to work, doesn't even
Past
want to
pain?
take care of the kid. So I think men are a little bit on edge about that, even though that they could afford anything they want. It's not really about the money. I think it's more of they don't want to be tricked into a relationship with someone who's pretending to be someone that they're not. But I think they almost fall too much on the other side of that, where
Correct.
they're not really prioritizing the right qualities for the right reasons.
Well, they want to know that whoever they're with is with them because it's them.
Right. Exactly.
Right? It's really hard to get that by trying to avoid, and you probably have seen this in what you're describing, but they're going to try so hard to avoid not being taken advantage of, that is going to keep them again at arm's length of whoever they come across. Is going to naturally make it harder for them to ever make a relationship work in the way that for them to get what they're looking for, to know that this person is going to be the one that is with me for me.
Yeah, because it's like, how can you really know until you give the relationship time? Like, you're not going to know day 1, this person has no ulterior motives, like, it's data
You have to be a
collection. That's
mind reader for yeah, you'd have to be a mind reader for day one.
yeah, it's we do the best we can to screen and vet people, and that's why people hire matchmakers a week. I mean, if I talk to a woman, she asks me 5 times how much a guy makes, I can tell for her for at least she's in it for the money. So we do our best to screen, but ultimately, the only way to know if someone's right for you is to collect data and give it time. And I think people are so worried about the outcome and want to force an outcome just so they want to. Sometimes they want a negative outcome just so they can have the outcome, rather than having the patience and getting to know someone.
It's a scary
Yeah,
world out there. I mean,
I know.
I see a lot of I don't know, I see a lot of different dating advice out there, and there's just a lot of people that are trying to figure it out, and so nobody really seems to have figured out what the well, if they have XYZ qualities or if they look XYZ, that's how I know, and so
Yeah.
the avoiding pain thing then comes up a lot.
Yeah. One other piece of advice I received, I'm curious if you agree or disagree. This actually came from an astrologer. She was doing my chart with my husband before we got engaged. And she was saying that we're very similar in a lot of ways. And that before I get annoyed with him and point out things that I don't like that he's doing, I need to pause and look at myself and see if I also am doing those things. Maybe they're in a different way where I'm annoyed he left a dish in the sink, but he's annoyed that I left a jacket on a chair and didn't put it away. He's like, she's like, look for things like before you start picking him apart for things that he's doing. Can he say the same things to you? And if he can, you just have to shut up. Do you agree or disagree?
I'm a little more in agreement with this one than the last one to a degree because I agree with certain aspects. I'll say that. And so what I would rather people do is okay, I know my the me leaving a jacket out annoys my husband. Therefore, if I translate that, there must be some pain attached to it. So I'm going to make it a point to make sure that I don't annoy him and I don't leave the jacket out because I know he's got specific. Maybe a different husband wouldn't have pain attached to the jacket out; they wouldn't care. This one does, and so I'm going to make it a point to do that. So I'd rather people think of it in those terms. And so I do like the don't say anything because most of the time it will end up not going well, come off as criticism. But I don't like the never say anything because then you end up feeling like you're swallowing a ton of things,
Right.
wouldn't which wouldn't end up helping you. The potential of it adding up and accumulating over the course of years, depending on the rest of the relationship environment, could be high. So that would be something to monitor, I guess you would say. I would say the other thing but the one thing I do like the most about that piece of advice is it is asking you to examine your own actions and how they impact the other person. I'd rather they happen earlier, but it is asking you to do that. So there is a lot of good to that because that's definitely one of the things I tell people is you get really, really good at what our partner does, what they do and what they say and how it impacts us. We get really good at noticing that. But we are tragically the vast majority of people unaware of what we do and say and how it impacts them. And one of the things I really try to get people to do is to just to become more aware of that, to become more aware of like intent is not the answer, impact is the
Taking
answer.
notes. I'm like, okay, gotta remember that earlier.
Well, I'm saying like
There's
because
just
a lot
so
of people do
true.
think, yeah, a lot of people do things with
We're
the
stuck
best
in how we
intentions.
feel about something. We don't think about what we're doing affecting them. And honestly, I feel like my husband's probably nodding, listening to this, like, yep. I think
So
we
is
all
everybody else.
yeah, exactly. I think that's so really one thing that I've tried to do, and someone else told me this piece of advice is rather than saying something to someone that you don't like, be an example and start, behaving in a way that you want them to kind of copy your behavior because we influence people that we're around a lot. And so if I'm starting to put my jackets away and I'm being tidier, that might encourage him to be tidy too because he's seeing that I'm doing it. So it's kind of like this nonverbal way of trying to get what I want in a
Yes,
positive way.
yes. There is a lot of truth to that. Reality is this is true in your marriage, in my marriage, and everybody's marriage, except very few exceptions with what I'm about to say, is your partner wants to make you happy. Sometimes I feel like I'm breaking news here when I tell people that. Your partner wants to make you happy.
Right.
The only thing that stops them is a whole hell of a lot of avoiding pain. So the easier, aka safer, right? The easier I make it for my husband to make me happy, the more he's gonna make me happy. The safer I make it for him, the more he's gonna make it safe for me. And so the more you do the kind of things that like the jacket thing, like the thing that I know bothers him and stuff, the more likely he's gonna pick up on doing the dishes thing just without even
Mhm.
thinking about it. But because of the emotional impact of it, though, he is not just doing behavior that you want him to emulate, or this would be true for in any marriage, but the key is to do behaviors that touch on emotional things for him. And that's what's going to get him to be like, oh, she gets that. Oh, she gets that it bothers me.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, oh, shit. Now I'm aware that oh yeah, that's right. This thing bothers her. Okay, I'm going to make it more of a point. Like that's how
So
the
true.
the thing
Because
goes.
I would think that there were things in our relationship early on that bothered him that I was doing. I'm like, this isn't a big deal. Like, why is he getting so annoyed that I'm
Pain.
doing a small thing? And I realized as I got to know him better, oh, there was an ex that did this and it caused a whole huge problem. You don't think about for you, it's a little thing, but you're right. There's a pain behind there
100% of
that
the time.
I haven't shared with you. And if you're more aware and you kind of think a little bit like, oh, there's something more to this, then you can kind of create space and hopefully they feel comfortable sharing that with you. And as
If you,
relationships go on, you naturally learn more and more about each other, and you kind
correct.
of you realize, oh, you had this experience with two past exes. That's why you're scared. I'm going to do something similar. You start putting the pieces together. I think that just happens over time too. We've talked a lot about relationships. I want to shift to single people, because you mentioned something that speaks really true to what I talk to my network a lot about is why attraction and emotional safety aren't the same thing. And I can't tell you, I literally feel like I like shaking people that, you can't lead just with your body when it comes to attraction. You have to lead with like your soul, with emotional safety. Just because someone is 6'3" and good looking, it doesn't mean they're also going to take care of your heart. They actually might do the opposite. So tell me a little bit about, how you help people differentiate, attraction versus emotional safety.
So most people, when the first time they hear this idea of emotional safety in a relationship, they think boring. They think stale, which is not the case. Emotional safety is about creating enough safety between us that we can then be more intimate, more vulnerable, share more of ourselves because it's safe enough to. That kind of intimacy breeds more attraction. Like more closeness breeds attraction. What most people think of emotional safety is like, oh, we have no adventure, we have no spirit. And that's the opposite. That's just, to me, it's more like avoiding hard things, not actually creating safety, which is not the same thing. I view attraction through that lens, in that just because you're attracted to somebody doesn't mean that they're going to be safe with you. But what I do know is if they are safe with you and you are safe with them, even if you find somebody else more attractive, that attraction for that person will 100% grow. There's no way,
Mm-hmm.
because that
Thank
kind of
you.
emotional closeness will always breed intimacy, and intimacy will always breed attraction. And so that's always the way, kind of, for me,
Is
I've
that
always
for both
conceptualized it.
men and women? Because I know
Correct.
women can
Yes.
grow in attraction, and men typically say they're either attracted or they're not. And it's difficult for them to grow into attraction. But you're saying that men can grow as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, men will say a lot of things that aren't,
Is it true
always
they're more visual creatures?
that. Yes,
Or is that
I,
is that
I would agree
something
with
we've
that.
labeled them? Like, are we just labeled men as visual creatures? But in reality, if attraction can grow, maybe we just have to relabel it as, don't lead with the body so much.
No, I do think men are visual creatures. A lot of men will say, I just need my partner to respect me. If respect is a big thing for them, it's usually because they have pain associated to disrespect in the past. The second book I'm going to write could be Book of Translations, right? Because you ever hear anybody say something that really bothers them, or they really dislike it, or they seem to react in a way that seems more than usual, more than what normal people, 100% of the time, pain is going to be behind it. Men will be looking for, when they say respect, I want her to be soft, I want her to be warm. They're looking for the same thing women are looking. It's just going to look different on the other side. They're looking for that sense of emotional safety, that sense of, this person's really in it with me. This person's really got my back. I really matter to this person. Those things that both men and women, universal throughout, for everybody,
How do they get
want.
out of their own way? Like, how do they not lead so much with that physical attraction? Do you have tips for that?
This is where, like, a lot of, to me, conventional dating advice ends up being harmful, is because so many have been programmed that that's what they have to do. I give them an option. Which would you prefer? A woman that's a 9 out of 10 in looks, but you're never going to be quite sure how much she's really into you. You can never really feel like you can really trust her. Uh, you have that, or let's say a 5 in looks. But you know that, no questions asked, she's got your back. No questions asked, she matters to you. You know for sure that she's always going to be faithful. She's always going to be loyal. You know it, for like in your bones, you know it. Which one of the two would
Mhm.
you prefer? And so the vast majority, some are gluttons for punishment, they'll pick the first one. But the vast majority pick the second one. And what I tell them is, what you will find is, with that second one, they will start to become hotter to you the more intimacy, the more closeness you have. But you got to give it a chance for that to develop. Ultimately,
Exactly.
that is, but that sense of this person that I know is in it with me thick and thin, that we're ride or die, we're in the grind, we're in it together, no questions asked. That sense is what you really want. You will find that over the course of time that the looks aspect and the whatever, that will not end up mattering. You will find wherever this person is, when you have that level of closeness, you're going to find the most attractive person, most attractive woman you're ever going to find.
I always think about, the old quote of behind every hot girl, there's some guy that's tired of sleeping with her. And I think it's true that a lot of men that, if they're chasing beauty and that's the only thing that's really important to them, there's pain behind that because they're trying to fill a void. And then also, I can't tell you how many men that I've spoken to, clients in the past, that said they had exes that were absolutely gorgeous, but all had mental health issues, one after the next. And these guys are all successful, good looking, highly, desirable men. Every single one of them has that ex, beautiful, but mental health issues.
Everybody's got pain in their history.
Why do these men attract these types of women? Is it like the crazy hot scale, where you're
Oh, the crazy hot matrix.
Yeah.
That
Why do these men attract these women? Like, what is it, like a savior complex in a way? Like, what is it about that?
it could be. What I find very interesting, and I can't tell you exactly why this is. I have not been able to figure this part out, but what I see happening a lot is two people will end up being more like that initial attraction in a with their pains overlapping. Like, so for example, like this happens a lot. One partner has pain attached to sex. They either were abused as a kid or they were raped, something. They have pain associated with sex. They don't know that they will end up being attracted to a partner that has pain attached to rejection. What's going to happen when they get in the bedroom? Yeah, you can see it play out like what I described it, right? And so that sort of thing happens a lot, a lot. Why they end up finding each other in that way, that I don't know. And so
That's interesting.
I,
It's almost like
I,
they're meant to find each other to help, fix each other's pain, or go through each other's
yeah,
pain together. That's
or
interesting.
or to bug the shit out of each other and end up in these huge fights, one or the other. But that's what I find. Those kinds of themes where like one person has a pain and and those pains kind of intersect. I will find that happen a lot, like a
Hmm.
lot. And so
How the hell do you do that?
I don't know. I don't. It's not like they have it like written on their forehead, going, "Hey, look at
Yeah.
this," right?
You just
I don't know.
recognize something. It's almost like
It's almost
you
intuitive.
yeah, it's like you need to face something, and this person is put in your path to help you face something,
They break
and
out the
whether you
worst in you.
realize it exactly. It could be a good thing where you guys do the counseling and figure it out and get the help that you need, or it could just
Be a
exacerbate the
total
problem that you
disaster.
have,
Yes.
and it could
Yeah.
oh my gosh, that's so interesting.
So it wouldn't surprise me if that was at play with some of
Hmm.
these stories with the guys and the women. It would not surprise me because this is again very stereotypical, and usually I don't do a lot of stereotypes, but stereotypes are for a reason. But it wouldn't surprise me if all these successful men were always the super quiet, super reserved, super. I don't ever say much. I don't show much. They naturally are going to attract somebody that is on the opposite end because I'm going to guess the ones that they're describing, all these women with mental health issues, right? The ones that have pain, right? They love them at first because they have so much fire, they have so much passion. They like, right? But then that same fire and passion all of a sudden comes out in unsafe ways. It ends up being like she's crazy. Like she's like, I don't know, I can't do it. I kind of think of it almost like an emotional balance in every relationship. If you add both people's, just call it emotionality, and add it to 100, right? 100 being like just emotion coming out everywhere, and one being like stoic 100% of the time, like their parents just died, you couldn't even tell. Like somebody that's like at a 10 will end up attracting somebody that's at a 90, and somebody that's at a 20 will end up attracting somebody that's at an 80, right? That's very much what I hear happening here. But what I always find interesting, and predictably this happens, is that as safety grows inside the relationship, as that 20 moves to a 30, that 80 moves to a 70.
Mm.
And as that 70 moves to a 60, that 30 moves to a 40. Because
So you're
they
saying there is some compatibility there.
yes, I do.
So opposites do attract.
They will 100%, but it's going to be more opposites in the sense of the emotional balance kind of thing.
Mhm.
Not necessarily just an interest, but that. So what those guys will find, when the women will find this also, but I'm talking to the guys at this point, is the more they can, instead of just saying that's how I am or that's who I am, being so stoic, If they say, well, what I do is not who I am, and they're like, I'm going to try to show a little bit more. And now I'm not saying you got to be like, I got to cry watching the Notebook, but I'm saying show a little bit more warmth, show a little bit more non-stoicism, show a little bit more emotion. They will find that those same women will start to come down little by little over time. Guaranteed.
That's interesting 'cause people always ask me, like, do opposites attract or is it better to, marry your twin? And I definitely think when you find someone that's exactly like you, A, it's gonna be boring. But B, how are you gonna complement each other if you're lacking in the same areas and you're really strong in the same areas? So I do think in a way opposites are really compatible, not super crazy extremes, like we have to be kind of more, in the middle, but if you're someone that is a little bit more calm, you do tend to be attracted to someone who has more exciting energy. I've never spoken to a person that's introverted and said they wanted to be another introvert. Never.
It happens, but yes, yes, that they're usually looking for what they feel they don't have, and vice versa.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
they bring the
interesting.
spontaneity, and then the woman will say, "Well, they bring the stability." They're the
Yeah,
calming influence. Everything else in my life is total chaos. They're the one thing that isn't. It's what I would say with both. But the last thing I was going to say is I would say for both sets of couples, whether you have similarities or whether you're opposites, build safety either way. That's going to be the solution to all your woes.
because another question that comes up a lot, people ask is, do you need to have the same types of hobbies, activities that you share, or that you enjoy doing together? If you like to play tennis, but your partner rather play video games, are you just not compatible?
Okay, so well, I would say it depends. And so I would say it depends on. So for me, safety in a relationship is always specific to the two people in the relationship. So what makes one person feel safe will not be the same as to make another person feel safe. So that the two people together create safety in that. So I would say it would depend on if the video game or the tennis or whatever the hobby may be, if what kind, if any, emotional attachment there is to it for each partner. Because for one partner, like the tennis for them is like the thing that they do when that bothers them, and they in that case they may not need their other partner their partner to play that with them. They could just play with anybody. But for instance, the
Mhm.
same tennis could be, this is how I got close to my father or my mother. Emotionally, they view it as a real bonding thing. That's going to be a thing that's going to matter to them. And so the thing that if the partner isn't a tennis player, that's going to end up being the thing that's going to create some like friction potentially.
I see. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because it's so hard to say a blanket statement that,
And a lot of people do though.
yeah, and I don't think you need to have all the same things in common. I've always said that if you have the same desire to stay fit, it doesn't matter if I do Pilates and you like to go to the gym and lift weights. No, like we both have the same umbrella that we like to stay in shape and live a healthy lifestyle. I think that's more important than exactly how that shows up for you. But I like how you said that maybe like the tennis thing. My husband loves to play tennis. I actually never asked him because he wants me to learn and I've tried. I'm just not good at hand-eye coordination. But I never thought to ask, is this something that is a bonding thing for you that's really important to you at a deeper level, or just something fun you want to play with me? Like I never
Or
thought to even ask.
just ask him what does tennis who taught him tennis, because he's probably not going to sit there and go, yes, here is everything, here is all the emotion I have attached to it, because he's probably going to be like, whoa, where's that come from? You're never talking to that dude again, right? That's probably
Yeah,
so just I would just ask him more of a like a more open, what I would consider non-threatening, safe question in terms of, well, just tell me your story of tennis. Like, when did you start playing? Who taught you? What made you like it? That kind of thing. And he will get
that's
around to
great.
getting a.
That's great for first dates, actually. On a
Mm,
first date, if someone asks you, like, how do you like to spend your time? And someone's like, oh, I like to play tennis. And then you ask them, like, oh, how'd you get into that? To ask more about that. That's a really good first date, get to know someone on a deeper level question.
Yeah, and it's non-threatening, so it doesn't go. Tell
Right.
me all your deepest secrets and all your fears and all the wounds you got with you. Right? Most people usually
Exactly.
go like, "Oh, yeah, I don't want to do that," but that is a way to, yeah, a way to be something open ended that kind of naturally gets them there.
Okay, last question I have for you is another one that I get from my clients and my network all the time is how to build intimacy on a first date. Because sometimes first dates feel like interviews. We're like, oh, where do you work? Where did you go to school? Where did you grow up? And it just feels very monotonous when you go on the different dates, but the questions are the same exactly every single time. What are some tips that you give people just to kind of build that intimacy, chemistry on the first date in a non threatening, safe way?
Well, my favorite one is always I think of people like earlier I was talking about we're wired to avoid pain. Like fundamentally, that our brain is here to not to make us happy, but our brain is here to help us survive. So we experience fear before anything else. So when I look out into the world and I just see people, all I see is just avoiding pain and avoiding pain. That's all I see. And so when I'm meeting somebody new, and I would say this would apply on dates also, even though it's been a long time since I've dated. When I'm meeting somebody new, I know that the person I'm meeting is going to be nervous. I know that they have their own avoiding pain. They have their own worries. Instead of, I don't think of it as how can I get this person to like me or how can I get this person to gel with me? I think, how can I make this person feel more comfortable around me? How can I get this person to feel like they can let their guard down around me, whether it's with a joke, so I'm trying, so I'm just kind of, I find one thing, anything about them that I can attach to, that I can like. So I'm like, so I feel good about them, that I like them. And it makes me want to, how do I make this person feel comfortable? Because the more comfortable somebody's around you, the more, and they're not going to know why consciously, but the more they're going to gravitate to you, the safer you feel to them. And that naturally creates good vibes, because like if that person, if I focus on making it comfortable for that person, they're going to let their guard down with me, which is going to help me put my guard down, which is going to then help us vibe and gel a lot quicker than going through the interview process. Be like, tell me
Yeah.
all the ways you suck. Here are all the ways I suck. Right? We don't
I
want
know,
to.
I hate when people do that. You're right. Making someone feel comfortable, like, for example, on first dates, I tell people, like, "Don't get too sexual, like, don't talk about sexual things, sexuality." It's too much on a first date, especially if you're meeting someone that's marriage-minded. They're going to be turned off by that, and I'm not gonna feel
Correct.
comfortable or safe with you if you keep making sexual jokes. Like, that's
Yeah.
just gonna be a no-go for me. I also feel like when you share about yourself, someone else feels comfortable sharing back. So
Mhm.
telling a story about your childhood or a funny memory that you had growing up, then they'll feel comfortable sharing some of those things with you too. Are there other ways to make people feel comfortable, or any other kind of tips?
Well, I would definitely, I said the five primary emotions that shape our lives: joy, fear, sadness, and pain. Right? I would definitely not go into a 10 out of 10 sadness or 10 out of 10 like pain in those, but I would do like joy is always a good one, 2 out of 10, those kinds of stories, because primary emotion does invite a sharing of the other person's primary wishes. So I do like a lot what you said a second ago. Things that a little bit of joy, a little bit of sadness, those things do breed a lot of little bit, as in low level, not like super big. Other things I think of is I'm just observing what they do when something bothers them, right? So I'm like, are they a talker? Do they get quiet? Do they get fidgety? Like, what do they do? And then when are they doing it? And so, like, let's say let's say if they're nervous, they're a talker. I'm like, I'm just gonna like ask them questions to let them talk about something they feel comfortable with, whatever that
Mm,
may be. If there's somebody that they're real shy or they're real quiet, I'm gonna be like, okay, I know that I need to get them to warm up some, so I'm gonna talk, but I'm not gonna talk about me necessarily. I'm gonna try to talk about like a joke or something funny, or maybe even in a way, but you got to be careful how you do this, in a way that's self-deprecating, right? In a way
right.
says, yeah, I just, sometimes I suck. Sometimes, sometimes I get nervous and I start talking. And I'm sorry, I just don't know. And so something that kind of, I hope this doesn't sound bad, but something that kind of lowers me down to help them
Yeah.
feel a little raised up, so they feel a little more comfortable, because I don't
Just
want them
being
feeling
vulnerable. Yeah.
in a lot of ways, but I'm trying to make sure that they don't, right? I'm trying to make sure that I can make them as comfortable as possible. That I'm verbally trying to tie my hands behind my back and try to make it seem like I'm not a threat in any capacity.
I
Right. And
see.
so if I'm talking, I don't want them to feel like I'm looking at them like this, right? And like
Mhm.
so I want them, if I'm talking or even if I'm listening, my goal is to make them feel comfortable. The easiest way for me is to try to figure out how to put myself down here, not in a literal sense, but in a way that they feel sense, so that they feel like they view me and feel me as less threatening, as
Yeah,
like
I see
they'll
what you mean.
I'll end up becoming likable on accident.
Yeah, there's something very likable about someone who has humility and who's humble rather than someone who's just so full of themselves on a
Yeah,
first date.
I wouldn't do
Like,
that.
yeah, 'cause some people really lean into, name dropping or, "Oh, I was at this cool restaurant
Yeah,
last night," or, "Oh, I went to this, fancy vacation."
they feel
And
like they
it's
got to impress whoever that they're talking to, and
yeah.
that just doesn't that wouldn't be the approach I would take. I'll say that.
Yeah, it's, if you're a confident person, you're not gonna be impressed by that. Okay, I love everything we've talked about. I feel like I learned so much from this chat. I wanna end it with just give us a couple of signs to know when you're in a healthy relationship.
Okay. So the way I define healthy relationship, I say healthy is a result of safety. So what I tell people is, for me, you're not looking for a healthy relationship. You're looking for a safe one.
Mm,
And so signs that you're in a safe relationship, depending on whose perspective you are, both people feel like whatever issue we got, I know I can go to my partner. I feel
mm,
that way towards my partner feels that way towards me. And I'm gauging it for myself to see, does my partner feel that way? And so it's kind of, I'm taking constant inventory of that. The other thing that I'm checking for both people is, how much do I feel like I matter to my partner? Do I feel like I'm
mhm,
like, and vice versa? Do I feel like if I don't know, if I had to have my partner drop everything for something I need, do I know that they would? And vice versa, does my partner feel that way? The more we feel like we matter, the more our partner feels like they matter, the more we feel like we can go to our partner for anything, the more our partner feels like they can come to us with anything, the safer it's going to be, the
mhm.
closer we're going to feel. And healthy will be a natural extension of that.
It's such a simple thing, being able to feel comfortable to go to your partner to talk about things, but I can I can't tell you how many people I dated where I was so scared if I send this one text, it's gonna end everything. It's gonna
Yes.
ruin everything if I say this one thing wrong, we're living just on, like, eggshells, living like you're on the, cliff's edge because 'cause you're so worried that the one wrong move that you do is gonna ruin the whole relationship. That's how you
Which
know
is
you're not in a safe relationship.
Well, right, but which is why my one rule for our relationships is, you have to create and protect the emotional safety of the other person, your partner, and of the relationship environment. Because what I would want in that circumstance is the other person to know that, okay, she's really nervous about sending a text. I got to make it safer for her to know that if she sends it, that it's not going to be a game ender. I got to make it safe. I can't have her just saying, "Well, you should trust me," just because that won't work. I know she's got that kind of pain in her history. I got to make it a point to create safety around this text message thing, so that I'll verbalize it. I'll even say, hey, you could tell me anything. You could just text me anything. I'll make it a point that whenever she does text, I'll respond in the nicest emoji filled way possible. Like I'll make sure that I go over the top to make sure that this person, that she knows that the text message, and that then allows you to feel safe enough to then to the text message, which and then it allows you to create safety for that person and whatever pain they have, and on we go. So I tell people, I would not focus on, I need my partner to make it safe for me. I tell people, I want you to focus on making it safe for them, and then they will make it safe for you. And that's how 50 years happens.
I love that. What a great place to end it. Thank you so much. Tell people where they can find you. I'll also add all the links into the show notes, but tell us a bit about where to find you.
You could visit my website, findyourrelationship.com. That's my practice website. You can find me. I'm really bad at social media. Man, I am not good at social media. So I just started a Twitter account like during the Christmas time. And so you can follow me on Twitter. I think it's at FY relationship, except there's no the last I. So it's SHP. It's not there.
Gotcha.
Character limit, got me. And so, yeah, you could, and if anybody ever has any questions about anything that they heard me say or anything, please feel free to message me. Please feel free to reach out. I love answering questions anytime.
Perfect.
And thank you for
Appreciate you
having me.
much. Thank you. I learned so much from this chat. Thank you. And maybe we'll have you again sometime soon. I
Yeah.
feel like there's something more to talk about.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Thank you.
Take care.